Hi, everybody. It's the end of the week. It's Friday. It's Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich here. We are joining you with live weather impact. And for once, I can tell you it's kind of a quiet Friday. It's kind of nice going into the weekend. We don't have a lot going on weather-wise locally, but we do have a lot heading our way, which will be a big subject of tonight's show, talking about heat advisories, heat indices. There's just heat, so just get used to the term hot and humid and heat. That's going to be a big part of it. We're also going to talk a little bit about microbursts, because we had a pretty significant one yesterday in Lincoln County. They often get confused with tornadoes, and we're going to talk about why that happens, and talk a lot about what they form. I brought some videos. Hopefully we can find some to show you what they look like, because they're crazy. Every time we get a microburst around here, I get everyone, that had to be a tornado, and it's really not. Sometimes they're actually worse than tornadoes, and we'll talk about that. But as always, we'd like to dive into the forecast. If you missed any of the shows earlier on WCNC, we'll talk about the forecast right now. And we'll start with the radar and satellite, because for once, as I mentioned, I'm not tracking storms. Brittany last night did a great job tracking the flooding in Caldwell County and the isolated severe risk. Really was a weird day yesterday, because there wasn't many storms. There was none around Charlotte, but north of Interstate 40 was really active. Today, you don't see this very much in the summer. We've got basically no storm activity anywhere near us. I'm talking none. We usually would have one or two pop-up showers or storms, but right now it's just bone dry out there. And I'm going to show you why it's bone dry, because we've got basically low dew points. Now, the temperatures today, it was warm. I'm not going to lie. I spent a lot of time outside today. It was 90, but it was a dry heat today. We got up to 90 degrees, our fifth 90 of the year, by the way, and it will not be our last, as you're going to see coming up in a second. But that is actually one ahead of our pace last year, which should tell you that we are running much warmer than we were last summer at this point. The dew points, though, this has been a big story today. I love the term air you can wear, because it fits when it's super muggy. Today is not one of those days. We have a dew point of 56 right now. I would take that every single day in the summer. It is just amazing. That is the example of dry heat. Even low 60s in the summer around here in the Carolinas feels amazing. So if you were outside today, it was hot in the sun, but if you got in the shade, it actually wasn't bad. And if you sweat today, this low dew point allows for your sweat to evaporate, and you can actually cool yourself. So if you have one of those misting fans, which are really popular, today those things actually would have worked, because the evaporative cooling would actually been able to blow colder air on you. So if you've been on a patio, a restaurant patio that has misters going on, today is the reason you have those, because it works amazing on a day like today, because the evaporation actually occurs and the air around those misters actually gets cooler because of that evaporation. You can see tonight we will cool down into the upper 60s, close to 70, actually maybe a little bit below normal for once. But today is also another big day. I want to talk about this for a second. It's the summer solstice. It is the astronomical beginning of summer. Now, the summer solstice actually is a moment. It's not a day. I think it's weird. We always say it's a day. It's actually a moment. It happens exactly at 10:42 p.m. Eastern Time. The sun's rays will be directly on the Tropic of Cancer. And so even though the sun won't be up here, it will be directly on that latitude, other parts of the world where the sun is up. And it is our longest daylight hours. In fact, in Charlotte, our longest daylight is today, and technically tomorrow too. It's like you can't even tell the difference today and tomorrow, but 14 hours, 32 minutes, and 1 second. So that is the longest daylight of the year. But here's the interesting thing, and I love this fact. It is not the latest sunset, and it's not the earliest sunrise. You would think that would be on the solstice. It is not. It is just the biggest distance between sunrise and sunset. These numbers and these sunset and sunrise times shift all the time. So I think it was last week we actually had our earliest sunrise of the season at 6:08. And our latest sunset isn't until like the 28th or 29th of June, when it's 8:42. So there's a little bit of lag there in when those actually occur. So if you thought today was the latest sunset, it's close. It's still a minute earlier than it will be coming up next week. My other favorite stat about today, and if you follow me on social media, I posted this, at solar noon, which people are like, what the heck is solar noon? Like, Jeb, do you know what solar noon means? All right, see, I love quizzing you. We're not going to ask Lily. She knows, okay? So solar noon is actually the point in the day where the sun is at its highest point in the sky. Guess what, though? It's not at noon. It happens at 1:25, and that's because of the time zones. Where we are in our time zone, the highest peak of the sun, the highest point in the sky happens at solar noon, and that actually is at 1:25 in the afternoon. And our sun angle right now, the highest it gets all year, is 78.2 degrees. So that's a great cocktail party, trivia question. You can go tell somebody. What's cool about that is I think there's this misnomer that the sun is directly above our heads at any point. It's not. It never gets to 90 degrees above our head. The only place in the world that happens is between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. In fact, the equator today, the sun is even higher than 90 degrees. It actually will be like at 95, 96. Remember, the tilt of the Earth is 23.4 degrees, right? So that little tilt, makes those parts of the world get the direct rays of the sun. So 78.2. And why is that cool? And this is only something super geeky I love on this time of year. You can go at solar noon. You can do this tomorrow, by the way. So it's the weekend. Maybe if you're at a brewery, this would be a great thing to do. At 1:25, go take a picture of your shadow. It's a small shadow you're going to cast the entire year in Charlotte. So I was kind of cool. And if you have a pole, like a light pole or something, it's kind of cool to watch that. It basically has no shadow at all. So it's kind of wild. So if you get a chance to do that, that's kind of a cool thing you can do on the solstice. But as I always like to rant about, it's not the official beginning of summer. That for meteorological reasons and climatological reasons, June 1st is the beginning of summer. This is just an astronomical event for us. So 68 tonight, tomorrow, you'll see temperatures in the low 90s, kind of toasty. And then we got to talk about this heat thing, okay? I feel like this happens every summer where we get a heat wave like this. And my social media comments, which you should probably never look at, just fill up with, they used to call this summer. Or it's like some silly, shocking, it gets hot in the Carolinas in the summer. Guys, this is serious heat wave, okay? This is not normal. Even for the hot Carolinas, our hottest average temperature of the year for a high is 91. So when you see temperatures going above 91, and I'm talking maybe near 100, that is out of the ordinary. And then you throw in the humidity, it makes it even more dangerous. So this heat dome is going to set up, and we're going to see some pretty excessive heat. So the National Weather Service does a really cool product, these heat impact graphics, basically how heat and humidity impacts you. So the 3-day outlook today obviously was the best you're going to see in the next 10 days. And if you want to know how hot it's going to be, if you spent time outside today and you go, Brad, it was not great. It was warm. It was hot. This is the coolest day of the next 10 days, okay? And maybe even longer. But today was minor, right? Tomorrow, Saturday, I'd say Saturday's going to be pretty good. If you're mowing the lawn, not horrible, moderate, right? We go into Sunday. We start seeing the red show up. So red's always a bad thing, right? Well, yeah, major impacts, meaning it's going to be hot and humid and could cause significant issues to people, especially if you're working outside. But it's Sunday. Hopefully you're at the pool or lake. Monday, people go back to work. Anybody that works outside. And the people I always think about, like, what's the one job you think about in this heat, guys, that would be like the worst job to have? Ooh, that's a good one. Lily? Construction. I think about those roofers.
Oh, yeah.
Being up on the roof and like those hot, oh man, those guys, I don't know how they do it. And they're usually fully dressed.
I was going to say every time.
And because they have to, because it's so hot. Like if you've ever been on like an asphalt roof in the summer, it is brutal. And
that
those guys.
And all the protective gear.
Yeah. Or the guys that have to go repair an air conditioning that's in an attic.
Yeah.
Oh, because that's where the unit is. And these attics are ridiculous. So those are the people I worry about this week because they're going to be working in this because look how bad it gets. By Tuesday, extreme, okay? When you see extreme impacts, that's when it becomes really dangerous between like 1 and 5 p.m. So if you, like say there's a lot of camps going on probably this week, summer camps. If you are in landscaping, to Jeb's point, those landscapers are working hard out there. Roofers, construction, laying asphalt. Anybody doing that stuff, HVAC workers, crawl space workers, people that have to go in these enclosed spaces that are hot and have that protective gear on top of that, it's going to be dangerous. And so you can still work. It's just you got to take more breaks, you got to drink more water, and you've got to have a plan and maybe shift your schedule to a cooler part of the day. I know Nick Sturdivant and I were joking about this. I like running in the middle of the day. I've always done it. It's just crazy, right? But because I played soccer all through high school and college, we always trained in the middle of the heat. So I was just, and our coach would always say, you got to train in what you're playing. So we would run in the heat because that's what we did. And so I do it all the time, but I probably won't do it this week. I'll probably try to run earlier in the morning. Because I notice I can go take a shower, put my suit on and come to work. My body temperature is so hot, I'm still sweating. Like, because your body temperature can't drop. So it's dangerous, and you just got to be careful. And then we'll go to Wednesday. Look at Wednesday. I mean, purple's really bad. Normally, I know we've done some research on purple. Purple doesn't always mean worse. People don't infer that, but on a weather graphic, when you see purple, it's bad. Okay, it's like an extreme version of red. So that's Wednesday, and trust me, Thursday could be just as bad. And that's a combination of heat and humidity, and we call that the heat index, right? The heat index is a real number. It does affect your body. It actually affects your body's ability to cool itself. And when we talk about the wind chill or the heat index, it's really the feel-like reading. These are things that affect the human body. So it's how your body interprets that temperature. There's always that internet meme that goes around about, if the heat index is 106, then the temperature is 106. You shouldn't just say it's 106 because if it feels that way, I kind of get that. It kind of makes sense because why don't we just say it's going to be 106 even though it's probably going to be 100? Because that's the way your body thinks. Your body will interpret that as 100. So let me show you I'm going to jump ahead here and show you the 7-day forecast and the 10-day, just because I want to show you where the temperatures are. And we're going to go back and talk about 100 degrees here because it's an interesting topic. So that's the 7-day forecast. Folks, we can't even fit 100 on the map sometimes. We have the way our 7-day is formatted, the 100 and a degree symbol don't even fit because we don't normally have that many digits on there. But we could be, honestly, you pick a day, Monday through Thursday, any one of those. Could it be 98? Could it be 100? It could be 101. It could be not. It's all the same. Your body's not going to know the difference. But I will say this. One thing that's interesting is the number of times we hit 100 degrees, right? Well, you're from the area. You're from upstate. Like, how many times can you remember it being 100 degrees? Like, actual air temperature.
Actual temperature, honestly, I couldn't even tell you, but it's every once in a while you feel like it's so hot that you think it's 100, but it's never actually 100 because statistically we don't actually hit it that much.
Yeah, which is what I'm going to get to. So, Jeb, how many times do you think you've ever felt 100 degrees? What's the hottest you've ever been in?
So I'm from California.
Oh, so okay. Well, you cheater.
So it would get pretty hot, and I've done Death Valley once.
Ooh.
We weren't like hiking or anything. We just wanted to go down there.
In the summer?
Yeah. Oh no, like
Furnace
spring,
Creek?
summer, early June.
Man.
I think got up to like 106, 107.
Oh my gosh.
I got you beat.
But it's dry.
Yeah.
I will always say, I would rather be in the dry heat of California
for sure.
than the humidity that we've had here or like Florida or Texas
100%.
or Minnesota. That's the worst I've ever done.
Yeah.
Was Minnesota in the summer.
I'm glad you said that because the Midwest is very underrated for its heat and humidity.
Oh, it's the worst. I've lived every part of the country. The Midwest is the worst.
That corn sweat when it gets going mid-July. Because it feels like the air doesn't move either. It's like 80 degrees at night. It's like horrible. So if you know what corn sweat is, we could do a whole show on that. Corn basically transmits so much moisture from its leaf surface into the air that it increases the low-level humidity in the Midwest because there's so much corn. There's these broad leaves, and it's crazy. I grew up in Ohio, so it's like I know the same thing. It's like ridiculous. But I'd say the hottest I've ever been, 122 degrees. Actual air temperature.
Where?
Lake Havasu, Arizona. I was there for 4th of July my senior year, and we drove from San Diego over there. And I remember opening the car door, and it felt like, when you're like cooking in the oven, and you open it up to put something in and it hits you in the face? It was brutal.
That was just the air.
Yeah. But it was a dry heat, like you said, and it was so crazy. The thing that struck me about Lake Havasu was kind of like what happens in the Midwest and the Northeast in the winter. In the middle of the day, nobody was outside. They just go out in the morning, and then it's like hibernation all day. And then in the evening, when the sun goes down, people start popping up. But I remember my uncle, he had a pool there. We could not swim in the pool after about 11 a.m. because the pool deck was so hot, and the shallow end of the pool was so hot, you couldn't get in it. So we would swim in the morning, then go inside and then swim in the evenings. But the evenings were so, I mean, it was 122, it was like 90 something at night, but it felt great because it was like no sun and it was dry.
Comparatively.
But yeah, Lake Havasu, I remember it was a record high that day too, I remember, which is brutal. So that's the hottest I've ever felt. But to Lily's point about 100 degrees, right? We're going to hit 100 possibly 4 days. The funny thing about Charlotte is I've been here 22 years now. I swear, locals to a man will tell you it hits 100 all the time. And I'll be like, no, it doesn't. It does not. And I have proof. We got receipts, okay? Look at this. This is since 2015. Thanks to Brittany. She put this together during my shows earlier because I was busy. These are the only times we've hit 100 degrees. We hit it once last year, July 5th. We hit it back in July, I think, of 2022. That was either July or June. I can't remember. But between now, the last 10 years, it's only happened 7 total times, okay? It actually snows more in Charlotte than it gets 100 degrees. That's a stat that I think blows people's minds. They're like, if you were to wager somebody Friday night going to South End and go, $100 guys, what happens more often? Don't Google this or AI this. Does it snow in Charlotte more or do we 100? I guarantee everybody would say 100 degrees. Now, the feel like reading, yeah, it gets 100 degrees all the time, but the actual air temperature doesn't. And the reason is kind of what Jeb talked about, the humidity. The more moisture in the air, it feels horrible, but it's hard to heat that air up. Moisture in the air makes the temperature, this is be the science part of this, it's a high specific heat of water, right? It takes a lot of energy to heat up water and cool it down. So when there's more moisture in the air, it's hard to make it really cold, but it's also hard to make it really hot. So the temperature kind of stays the same. So when we get our 90-degree days with lots of humidity, usually it's like the low in the morning is like 70 and the high is 90. The temperature doesn't move very much. It's pretty stable. You actually have to go to drier climates to get hotter temperatures. But when we do hit 100 here, it's really bad. I think it's worse than that 122 in Lake Havasu because we'll have 100 degrees next week and the dew point will be like 70 or 71, which will make it feel like Lake Havasu, like 110. It'll be brutal. So that's what we're looking, I would say look forward to. I say what we have to deal with this week. But I will say this, I want everyone to be very careful, okay? I'm a dog owner. I love my dog. He loves the heat for some ridiculous reason. He goes out and lays in it, and I have to force him inside. But the one thing, if you've ever been at the beach without your flip-flops and tried to walk across the sand, think about what your pet does every single day. It walks on the pavement, the asphalt, the deck. Oh, man, some of these, like, artificial wood decks that we have around town, those things are so hot. So we have this 7-second rule. If you have a pet and you can't hold your hand against that surface for 7 seconds, you should not let your dog, because they'll burn their pads. And actually, you talk to vets and like the humane said, they'll tell you pets will come in with blisters and like burns on their pads. So walk them in the grass. The grass is actually cooler than the air temperature by about 5 or 10 degrees. Walk them in the shade, walk them in the morning, evenings. If you have to take them out, just get them over that concrete or asphalt quickly. Do not let them stay there very long. So make sure you're looking out for them because they definitely, they suffer a lot in this heat as well. Remember, the only way they cool themselves is not by sweating. They got to pant. Imagine trying to get all the heat out of your body by just panting. It's brutal. So the heat is going to be a big story this week, and it's going to be a big problem. So we'll talk more about the heat. I think you're probably going to be sick of it, just like everyone does of the heat. We're going to be hearing about it every day. But please take it seriously. I will just put this plea out to everybody. Heat is the #1 killer of all the weather phenomena we have. So I know all those tough guys out there who say it's just summer, it's this way all the time. I'll stop harping on this when the death rates start dropping because then we know people are listening. The reason I think the death rate is so high with heat because people still don't take it seriously enough. They're like, I'm going to mow the lawn when it's 100 degrees outside, and I'm going to have like 2 cups of coffee and a beer in me and not have any water, and I'm going to go mow the grass. And that's when someone's going to have heat exhaustion or heat stroke. Every year it's a horrible situation. Kids in football practice, we always hear about some kid at football practice overexerts themselves and they pass out, or in some cases we've had fatalities because we're practicing in the middle of heat. So and unfortunately we have the other aspect of this, dogs and kids being left in cars. It's horrible. So it's something to take very seriously. It doesn't mean you can't do anything. Trust me, I'm going to be doing tons of stuff outside. I'm just going to change the way I do things. So just take it seriously as we get into this. So next, I want to talk about microburst, okay? I don't know, Jeb, did you guys talk about this last night when you had severe weather going on with Brittany? Because we didn't have a lot of storms, but we had a pretty good storm last night that caused some damage.
Yeah, we mentioned it a little bit, especially in that early time when we weren't totally sure, because it was so spotty. I mean, it was crazy.
There was this crazy storm that came through Lincoln County, and it was an isolated storm, but it produced a microburst. And I had all these people lighting up my DMs, like, we just had a tornado on Lincoln Hickory Highway. And I'm like, no, there was no tornado signature. It was all outbound winds. And I feel like this happens every summer. Microbursts, especially which are small-scale downbursts, cause as much or worse damage than tornadoes. And because they hit quickly, they happen in like a blink of an eye, and they can be so destructive, people immediately think of them and think tornado. But they're not. They're downburst. And with a little bit more about the explanation of that, Brittany Van Voorhees did a great weather IQ on these and explains what a downburst is and the different types there are.
Severe thunderstorms generate 90% of wind damage in the Carolinas, which is why you'll see more damage reports from strong winds over tornadoes. What makes straight-line wind different is in its name. These winds within a thunderstorm don't rotate. Unlike tornadoes, which pick things up and throw them around, these winds blow directly across an area. Straight-line winds can impact power lines, block roadways, and topple massive trees. Falling trees account for nearly 3/4 of all wind-related deaths. One form of damaging winds are downbursts. A downburst is created by an area of rain-cooled air that sinks rapidly to the surface. As the air hits the ground, it is forced to spread out at a speed of up to 150 miles per hour. A microburst is a downburst with a diameter of 2.5 miles or less, whereas a macroburst is much larger. These wind events can destroy entire buildings and are very hard to predict. When damaging winds threaten the Carolinas, the National Weather Service will issue a severe thunderstorm warning, which means you can expect winds up to 60 miles per hour or greater. These should be treated with urgency, just like tornado warnings. Find an interior room on the lowest level of your home away from windows. Cover your head with a pillow or helmet to prevent injury from debris. No matter a tornado or strong winds, Mother Nature's destruction can take only seconds. With your Weather IQ, I'm meteorologist Brittany Van Voorhees.
Yeah, 90% of our damage from severe thunderstorms in our area come from downburst or come from some type of microburst. And it really is like every summer. And they can happen any time of year. So we're going to go to YouTube. You're going to see this video of what one of these looks like. Now, it gets this nickname. I'm not a big fan of this. I don't know if you like it. Rain bomb. I don't like that. I've heard that term used a lot. It's a wet microburst. And a microburst is straight line winds that come down quickly, but when it's loaded with precipitation like our summer storms are here, we call it a wet microburst. Now, some people rename that to a rain bomb because I think you'll understand why it gets that nickname when you look at the video, because it'll actually show, and this is out in the desert Southwest where we got better visibility. It shows the rain descending from the cloud with the wind coming down as well. So I'm going to play this, Jeb. Take this real quick and I'll play it and kind of narrate this, obviously, in real time. So you'll see this storm moving across, and you see that blob? It's rain, and notice how it hits the ground and spreads out in all directions. So that was too quick. We'll show you another view of one. This one is in Oklahoma. And I think this one does a little better. This is a little bit longer one. It's about 2 minutes. This is very similar to the video you saw on Brittany's package. But the one thing you'll notice here is look how calm it is right now. So the rain is moving in. It's starting to rain. Look how heavy the rain gets here, okay? So we're looking, and watch how quickly this escalates from being just looks like a little shower. Now it's getting kind of windy, kind of thing. Oh, they've got a thunderstorm coming in here. And then as this goes on, you're going to see the rain picks up. So we know this is a wet microburst because it's loaded with precipitation. And as it continues to get move in, look how quick the wind accelerates here. And then watch what happens in a matter of, I mean, I've only been playing this video for 47 seconds, okay? And it was completely dry when the video started. The wind's picking up. You're probably thinking, this is a pretty good thunderstorm. You haven't seen anything yet. Wait till the wind continues to pick up. The storm is getting closer. You look off in the distance, you can actually see the rain getting heavier. And watch the wind just come out of nowhere here. And it hits the ground and spreads out in all directions. And the way these hit sometimes are why people confuse them for tornadoes, because they can hit just as quickly. So here we are, we're now a minute 20 into this. This is where things get really interesting. All of a sudden, got one tree down. Look at the wind, another tree. Look at the limbs just blowing all over, more branches coming down. It gets worse. So what's happening here is the rain is collapsing to the surface. It's actually bringing in not only wind, but it's dragging air down to the surface. And look at this visibility here for a second. You just can't see anything. So if this hit your house and you went outside and saw this, you probably had to be a tornado, right? It's not. This is all straight line winds. You notice the wind was all going the same direction. But what's interesting about this, Jeb, let's take the weather graphics here, weather one real quickly. I want to show you why this sometimes can even cause the wind direction to change a little bit. These microbursts are dry air in the middle, and when that dry air cools off, just like the evaporative cooling we talked about today helps you out, that evaporative cooling creates cold air that descends near the surface. And when it hits the ground, the air spreads out in all directions. And sometimes you'll get little gustnados or even swirls on the edge of this. They can cause some significant damage. This graphic, I think, is even better because it really explains some of the issues we have with microbursts. The downdraft comes out of the storm. We get that small scale downburst, we call it a microburst. If it's a little bit larger, we call it a macroburst. But you see that curlicues on the side, that bell shape to it? That's when we know we've got a downburst or a microburst. Now, they can be as strong as 150 miles per hour. So think about that. That's like an EF 3-4 tornado, in some cases. An EF 0 tornado could have 65 mile an hour winds. So in many cases, this will be a lot worse than a tornado because it's over a much bigger area. Now, if you ever have travel plans in the summer and you're wondering why the planes aren't landing at the airport, they don't want to go anywhere near these things because these are the things that crash airplanes on takeoff and landing. In fact, we take for granted Doppler radar has saved millions of lives just for this very reason. Airplanes used to take off and land in thunderstorms all the time, and we had in the 70s, really, the 60s, 70s, and 80s, there were crashes all the time in thunderstorms because planes didn't see these things. They didn't know. Doppler radar allows us to see them now, and this is why the airport has a terminal Doppler radar. But because of this, that's why when thunderstorms are anywhere near an airport, the airport shuts down because there's not a single pilot that's going to go anywhere near this, not to mention the lightning and the other things that affect the ground crews as well. So if you had damage up in Lincoln County, we saw your pictures. I understand. It doesn't diminish the damage. That's the other thing. I think sometimes people think it has to be a tornado because it makes it more serious. No, a wind is wind, folks. All wind causes damage, and a severe thunderstorm is as dangerous as a tornado. It can cause as widespread damage. It doesn't change the insurance on your house, whether it's a tornado or not. There's a kind of a myth about that as well. If you get a severe thunderstorm, this is what we worry about in the summer. I hope everyone has a great weekend. Stay cool. It is going to be seriously hot next week. We'll talk about that more. Colin is next with more.